Hi, I'm Deborah Hamilton. Welcome to my podcast, Why Do Pets Matter? 10 years ago, with my iPhone and a script, I recorded the first episode of the Ultimate Pet Resolution Summit, which chatted with experts about conflicts over animals. Our conversations were intimate, honest, and illustrated how disagreements over animals occur and how those disagreements can reshape people's lives and relationships. In November 2019, I started Why Do Pets Matter, a new podcast that continued these informative discussions. I'm so excited to have you here with me, continuing my exploration into a more meaningful conversation about why pets matter to all of us. My guests and I will share ideas, stories, and experiences straight from the heart, unscripted and holistic. From the bravest moments to the most brokenhearted, we will explore how to resolve disagreements over animals differently. One thing I know for sure is I want to have more meaningful conversations that will help all of us unlock that deeply felt human-animal bond that drives the emotions of conflict. Today, I am thrilled to have Dr. Mark Olcott, veterinarian and CEO of VitusVet. Mark, thank you so much for coming and speaking to us on Why Do Pets Matter?
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, we always ask our guests the first question, and then we go from there. Mark, why do pets matter to you?
You know, I can't ever remember a time where they didn't matter to me. I guess there's so many reasons. I think the biggest one is just they really are a tremendous source of unconditional love. They have an unbelievable connection with us. You know, no matter what your emotion is, they seem to be able to pick up on it. Both I've had dogs and cats, so those are primarily the species I talk about, but horses too. I used to be a horse vet for a couple of years, and there's just an amazing connection between these species. And you can understand why tens of thousands of years ago, you know, early humans sitting around the campfire would invite dogs in and throw them scraps of food, and eventually they'd come closer and closer. And there's this great symbiotic relationship, but they've mattered to me as long as I can remember. Like most veterinarians, I decided to be a vet when I was about 12 years old. There's nothing else I ever wanted to do. I liked science, loved animals, and I wanted to help them.
So tell us a little bit more about why you wanted to become a vet, because Why Do Pets Matter becoming a vet are such key elements to a lot of my guests.
I really, I loved science. I loved animals. It sounds really simple. Some people ask, did you ever think about being a human doctor? The answer is no. As I think Justine Lee's, she has a Vet Girl, has this great t-shirt I saw once, and on the back of it, it says veterinary medicine because humans are gross. And I never had any interest in being a human doctor, but veterinary medicine is a calling, and it's a great way to combine my love of analytical thinking and science and biology and helping pets. And in helping pets, we also help the people who are in the pets' lives, if you will. So it really is a tremendous synergy. If you can help this one pet, it makes a tremendous impact on that entire family because of the unconditional love that they feel for that pet. So I'm just very grateful, really, for this opportunity. That's especially as I've gotten a little bit older. I'm grateful for the ability to give back to a profession that's done so much for me.
You know, it's interesting you said that, because the human-animal bond is so important to people who have animals. I often mention that people who don't have animals are a very disenfranchised group, because sometimes people think oddly of them because they don't want animals in their lives, but that's okay too. But pets do matter to people, and when they bring them to the veterinarian, it is that human-animal bond, and then the bond that they have with their veterinarian that helps keep the pets healthy and safe. So how do you communicate with your clients in a way that helps you understand their pet?
When I was in practice, and I practiced for 20-something years before now really working full-time on VitusVet, I like to ask kind of open-ended questions, trying to avoid the strict yes or no questions. and really get people talking about the pet. And you can pick up some gems on where they are with this pet. You can pick up how much the pet means to them. And there's, as you said, there's a whole spectrum of care. For some people, it is quote unquote just a pet. On the other end of the spectrum, I know clients that seem to have a deeper relationship with their pets than they might with children or other human beings. And you can pick up on that if you listen. And I think you have to know your client and their particular situation so that you can best offer them the advice that's right for them, and counsel them. I viewed my role as kind of a coach, if you will, or a counselor, where it's my job to lay out all your different options, medically, financially, the whole thing, all the way from doing nothing. You can turn right back around and walk back out that exam room door and do nothing. It's usually not the right choice, all the way up to the Cadillac therapy. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do, but that doesn't mean that we should do them. And that's a conversation people have with around in human medicine as well. I think just because we can do something doesn't mean we should, but it's especially acute in veterinary medicine where, cost comes into it pretty early on in the conversation,
It is always that question, what we can do, what we should do. And I find that to be one of the most difficult conversations that my guests have experienced, because there are things that they want to do or they can do that they need to be totally transparent with their clients on whether or not they should do it. Just because you can, or you might, or you can afford it, should you do it? And if you do it, that conversation has to be completely transparent on, this is what we hope is the outcome. And then there's this.
Right.
So when you're having that conversation with your client, having that, whether it's a cat or a dog or a bird or a horse, I love that you included horses. No one ever includes horses. And I love horses. I think they are a very underappreciated group because of their size and, quite frankly, the cost of keeping a horse. The cheapest part, I always say, and so does my husband, is buying the horse. That's the cheapest part. Keeping the horse is really difficult, but they really do absorb so much of that, especially now that we're in COVID and everyone has been sort of locked down. My colleagues who have horses, and I don't know if you treat horses any longer, but you probably remember this from the days when you did. Horses really do understand that human animal bond as well, sometimes better, because of their sheer size. It just seems like they wrap you up.
It's the tremendous relationship between our two species. And my sister is a physical therapist, has done hippotherapy for years, working with horses and people either with physical or emotional disabilities. And it's unbelievable the reaction that people can get from horses. People that never talk will talk to the horse, or it's just incredible. And there's something really special there. I get goosebumps even just talking about it now, but horses are pretty special animals.
Yeah, I'm so glad I went there because I get goosebumps all the time as well. And people, of course, now during COVID, a lot of animals have been adopted. And so the veterinarians have become overwhelmed. And so in that overwhelmed sphere, getting information from the vet to the client has been a challenge. And I think that maybe VitusVet has something that could help alleviate some of that anxiety. So tell us a little bit more about VitusVet.
Yeah, I started VitusVet. I actually grew out of a business school project. I went back to get my MBA at the University of Maryland. I was growing very frustrated as an emergency vet. I was an emergency vet for really the last half of my career. Really frustrated with the lack of after-hours medical record access. It's a big problem. That leads to adverse outcomes for pets, leads to a lot of extra cost for pet owners, because there's such tremendous, what I guess we'd call information siloing in our business. In other words, your regular veterinarian has this treasure trove of information, but when they're closed, if you go to the emergency clinic, that emergency clinic can't talk to your general practice.
Right.
So we started off by creating an app that allowed pet owners to tap into their veterinarian's medical record database in an emergency, when they're traveling 24/7, to have access to certain pieces of information that me as their emergency vet would love to be able to have: medical notes, lab work, really important stuff beyond just vaccine dates and prescriptions, the real meat of the record. And it was really popular with pet owners. It still is. And we've since evolved the platform to really reduce friction between pet owners and veterinarians. And I really got my eyes opened when I was in business school, because like a lot of veterinarians, I didn't even take business 101 in college.
Yeah, that's not one of the things. It's sort of like they don't take conflict or speaking with clients 101 either.
No,
you just take eye medicine or blood, whatever. You just never take those things that help you run a business or speak to clients, because what do you do all day? Run a business and speak to clients.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And veterinary schools in particular are much better about that now, about the business side of veterinary medicine. But I really had my eyes open specifically around how consumer communication preferences were changing. You know, where people want to do business with you on their phones. I think the secret of Amazon is not low prices. It's radical convenience and simplicity.
While you're binge watching, you can also order $1,000 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Not that I've ever done that, Mark.
No, not at all.
You haven't either, bro.
Well, the holidays are coming. You should try it.
That's right.
But the same idea, like, a veterinary practice shouldn't require their clients to call them to make a nail trim appointment. Or really, when you think about it, a lot of their appointments, and I'm not talking about sick pets now, but there's a lot of simple annual exam, nail trims, blood work. A lot of that stuff really should be automated. And it helps, not only does it help your business, because if you make something simpler, you get more of it. So if I make it simpler to request a refill, or if I make it simpler to book an appointment, I'm going to get more of that. But we've also found is a secondary effect of that is you can be just as busy with dramatically fewer phone calls. And the front desk at a lot of veterinary practices can be pretty chaotic.
Yeah, it's a war zone.
It is. And how can I transition some of those phone calls to texts, for example? We've got this really cool texting platform that now, in the world of touchless transactions, we're actually allowed to pay. So we have this thing called text to pay, where I can send a link to a client and they can pay.
Yeah.
Just, again, take friction out of that process. And as it gets colder and people don't want to be doing a lot of trips out to the car for curbside care, we think that that's one simple way to make the experience better for the pet owner, to make it quicker for the pet, and also for that veterinary team, because they're under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress right now. As you mentioned, it was one of who would have predicted that with a global pandemic like this, that veterinarians would be busier than ever. But with the adoptions, as you say, and people home now thinking, well, boy, I guess that limp is a lot worse than I thought it was. So I should go and have this checked out.
Right. Much more observant.
Really busy, a lot of strain on team members. And to the extent that we can use technology, right? I mean, if I'm the CSR at a veterinary practice, the client service representative, I can only talk to one person at a time on a phone, but I can be running multiple text threads with clients, as we all often do all day long, right? How many of us are texting with multiple people at a time? So how do we just bring that kind of thinking to vet practices? That's really what we're trying to do at VitusVet is bring that in using technology as a tool to make life simpler.
So I absolutely agree, because the people who are really participating in this early adopters, are my son, who's like 30. People like me, though, who are in their 60s, sometimes are a little afraid of this and really like to talk to the front desk woman, which, of course, is that counterintuitive thing that, oh, I'm on the phone for 10 minutes, just shooting the breeze to make an appointment. So that's 10 minutes out of your day. And, you know, you don't want to be rushed off the phone, because then Mrs. Smith got angry because I got rushed off the phone. So your product, does it have any capabilities of doing that human bond kind of thing, where It's simple, it's quick, but it also can be programmable to say, and thank you so much, and we hope this made your day, and how did you find this? Let us know, or anything like that, so that people my age feel engaged. And I think that's the thing that probably is the balance to find in a product like VitusVet.
You're exactly right. It's all about balance, and it's not an all or nothing sort of thing. I'm the last person to suggest that you can replace the telephone with texting, but the idea is to automate the things that should be automated, so that your team can focus on those conversations that can be only had face to face or in person. Or the other thing that's great about texting is it opens the door, right? Like when I was in emergency practice, our phones used to ring off the hook every night from about 7 o'clock, when most practices would close, to midnight. Yeah. And the question was basically, is this bad enough to come in tonight? So if a text can just open the door to allow a client to ask you, my pet's doing A, B, and C, is this something I should come in? Then maybe you do want to pick up the phone and talk to them, but at least you've made it easy for them to throw that first conversation overboard, to start the conversation. Because if the bar is, well, you've got a call, then I'm thinking, well, I'm probably going to get put on hold, and I'm at work, and God, I just don't have time for this. And then, the day's gone. So
yeah, your phone rings and you forget. And I thought, it's sort of like either sending the email and not knowing if you got an email back because you got busy with your day, and then, oh my God, it's past 5, nobody's going to answer the phone. So this is an immediate response to let you know. This comes under the auspices, sort of, I think, of assisting in telemedicine, because the veterinarian you might call in the emergency clinic to ask, or who's online on emergency lines, say, not necessarily in a clinic, would also have the ability to know, oh, wait, your dog is limping in the left rear, and that's where, and I'm making this up, I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV, but sometimes when a dog gets a vaccination, if they get it in their left rear butt cheek or something, their leg might be a little sore. They might, we all get vaccinations and we get sore. They walk on their legs. We usually get them in our arms. We don't walk on our arms, so it isn't as prevalent, that your arm hurts. But when you lift it up or put your shirt on, it hurts. So wouldn't that be something that would provide information, like you said, to someone who I'm calling because my vet's closed, to be able to know that, oh, wait, it says here that blah, blah, blah. And maybe we are better informed, and so can say, maybe you don't have to come in today. Maybe you can come in tomorrow. Tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, it's really a challenge for the teams at emergency practices, because they can't really say too much because of the veterinary client-patient relationship. They can ask a couple of questions, but really we'd love to give you any meaningful information. We kind of need to examine your pet, and they may not know. They might know to ask, did you have any vaccines today? They might not. Sometimes there's just no substitute for a good old-fashioned physical exam. But if I can connect my clients with my own team, the veterinarians on my team who can access those records a little bit more easily and answer those questions, then for sure. Or your pet just went home from being spayed today and they might be a little bit lethargic. Well, that might be normal. Yeah. So how can I not just have the pet owner on their own? That's when they get frustrated. That's when they look to Dr. Google and start searching for things, and they can get frustrated and they don't know really what to look for or what the right questions to ask. So I just want to make it simpler for them to connect with people who do have the training and education and access to data to give them a meaningful answer.
It's interesting you said that, because when I interviewed Dr. Stacy Santee, whose interview will be coming up soon, she said she always likes to make sure that the client goes home with an email or a text with what happened today on their phone. And that would be something that also would give the client some comfort in knowing, okay, so this is what we did here today. And she said it's really interesting. I teach people how to write things up, because the change in the language is not so great. that if it's a dermatitis or it's something else, you can use the basic language to explain dermatitis and then only have to put in the specific language for your dog. Mm-hmm. And that really works well. But with VitusVet, you get, and correct me if I'm wrong, you can get access to your information, or is it just veterinarians that can get access to your information?
No, pet owners can too through the app. Yeah, where they can get access to, depending on what their veterinarian is comfortable sharing with them. But typically it's medical notes, obviously vaccine dates, prescriptions, the kind of stuff that, heaven forbid, you find yourself in an emergency. You'd want to be able to access that information. So that's really compelling for them. And the key with mobile is that you have to give pet owners a reason to download and use the app. And there's a lot of still some thinking among veterinarians that they think of this very much like, how can I use this app to benefit the practice? And I'm a big believer that you have to give value first.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of apps out there, and most of them are downloaded, looked at, and deleted. But ours, you can look at our app store reviews. It's really a compelling app because we have given that pet owner something of value. And I think that's a big message for veterinarians is there's nothing that boosts trust and loyalty like a little bit of transparency.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want our message to you is, here, take this. You paid for it. It's your medical record. We want you to have access to this. We trust you. We love you as a client. And we want you to have this information because especially with the holidays coming or on weekends, if you're traveling, we want you to have it. And I've seen pet owners, they look at the app and they see this and they're like almost stunned and grateful. Like, wow, thank you. I mean, this is fantastic.
You're barking up the right tree with me because I do this program called the MAP Plan, Navigating the Journey Your Pet Takes When You Can't Care for It. And if your pet gets sick while you're traveling on the weekend or while you're away, you have the ability to give all this information on your phone to maybe the emergency room vet that you had to go see because the dog got into something or whatever. It just seemed to me that it's an important process, but it has one link. And I want to ask you whether or not vets have, because I know sometimes we hold things really, we live in scarcity instead of abundance. And so sometimes veterinarians are like, well, I don't want to give all that information away. I want to hold that close to the vest because I want my client to stay with my client. Have you found that pushback or no?
I'm so glad you said that. Absolutely. And it is.
Because I might want it, but if my vet doesn't have it, it doesn't work.
Well, here's the thing. The lesson of the internet is, and what I would tell to any veterinarian who says that if they think that their medical record is ownership of a client, they should think again, because your client can switch anytime they want. There is no switching.
The ownership really is in the relationship, not in the records.
And what better way to build that relationship than cement it by that transparency? So I would say to them, doctor, you got it backwards. Nowadays, you have to give that away. And they really will stick with you and they'll tell your friends. Because if you live in scarcity and hold on to that and you think the record is your hook into that client, it's not. And there's some practices that get that. Many, unfortunately, don't. They're worried that if they give up access, that's the only thing that's keeping that client from switching vets. And that's not the case.
And, veterinarians are really
differently. I think we talked about Brene Brown. I'm sure she would agree with that. For sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's about getting it right, not being right. So if you want to keep your client, what is that saying? That, if you love something, let it go and it'll come back to you. I know that's really fluffy. However, it really is true with veterinary medicine, because most of the time when my clients come to my office, the lack of transparency and the inability to get records, is what fosters the conflict. Yeah. If they had this kind of transparency right there in front of them, they could go back, they could read at their leisure, they could do whatever they needed to do, they could ask questions. We've got a really intelligent pet owning public out there. And there's, as you said, Dr. Google's out there. So everybody has every malady known to man. Or some people don't check Dr. Google at all. But we really do want to be in partnership with our veterinary and partnership with our veterinarian in a way that includes transparency. And if I have one client who's angry with their vet, say it, I have a million. Two things they say. One is they were never transparent. I didn't know what was going on. And you're speaking a language they don't understand, quite frankly. And the second was, I just don't want this to happen to anybody else again. So when you said, veterinarians really need to understand that clients need this, they want this and they need this in order to stay with you, that is so impactful to me in my practice, because that's what's driving people away.
Yeah. I think it really is. And especially a lot is made of millennials and whatnot, and to not,
I own two of them.
The right term, but new style clients, because it's not even just millennials, it's really everybody. Transparency, is a thing. It's different than human medicine, but even in human medicine, you can access your own records right now. And people know there's no HIPAA in veterinary medicine. They paid a lot of money for this stuff. Why can't they access it? They can FaceTime a friend in Australia in real time. And you're telling me I can't see my cat's x-rays on my phone?
Yeah.
No, I know it's possible. Why aren't you showing it to me? That's how they think. And they'll look around for someone who does show it to them.
Oh, yeah. And so you'll lose the client because they can get more access to the information they want. As you said at the beginning, dogs and cats and birds and horses have all become so much more important to us before COVID, but then absolutely after COVID, because animals just have shifted. And I know we're sort of, maybe I'm much older, maybe, but not too much older. Pets, the definition of a pet has changed in your lifetime as a veterinarian. At the beginning, I don't know that people would have spent $10,000 on chemotherapy for their pets in the 60s and 70s. A, it wasn't around. And B, just get a new one. I mean, my father used to say that all the time when I was spending money on my dogs. He'd go, a new one is much cheaper. I said, Dad, it's not a car, but it is a car when it comes to if something goes wrong, because they're still property. But they're not cars anymore in anybody's estimation. What do you see? Because I think that when you began, pets were at and maybe I'm wrong, and please feel free, Mark, to correct me. Pets were a different animal, no pun intended, than they are now.
For sure they are. And they've gone from, I read somewhere, someone said they went from the barnyard to the backyard, to the mudroom, to the kitchen, to the bedroom, to the bed.
Yeah.
In 20 years.
Yeah. In what, like 20 or 30, maybe 40 years now, because I'm 60. So probably I would say in my lifetime from the 50s until now, they have done that transition, and that's only 50 years, and they have made it really far.
Yeah, and there's still exceptions. I mean, a lot of it depends where you are. If you're out more, and people that are, there are farm dogs and barn cats for sure. And then there's the whole other end of the spectrum too. And to my point earlier about figuring out where that client is
key,
right? I mean, it's
no guilt. No guilt.
Yeah,
that's my big thing too. Please, no guilt. Don't tell me I have to do this.
Right, exactly. And I think that's a challenge that we have sometimes as veterinarians, is we have to watch the tendency to be judgmental that client is not doing something that you think they should be doing. And, our job is to give advice, to take care of pets, but no pet comes in without a human being attached for the most part.
Yeah, I always talk when they speak about fear-free, I go, we need to also include the client in the fear-free, because how you walk in is how the pet arrives as a pet owner. And you're fearful sometimes. Some people are more fearful of the veterinarian because you're taking care of my baby who can't speak. Right. Than your pediatrician, because your kid usually, unless it's a little baby, can speak and tell them where it hurts. So this is really transformational in how people are addressing the needs of their pets and speaking about their pets. And yet, there's that delicate balance between going back to what we started talking about. And, I have to have you back to talk about judgments, because I know that a lot of my clients do feel judged. And as a veterinarian, that's sort of the gray area. I want to let you know what you can do. I want you to know whatever you choose will be the best for your pet. And because a lot of judgment comes with decisions that people make around their pets, both good and bad.
For sure it does. And I think there's a way you can have it both ways, where you can be a very strong advocate for your patient, but do it with a tone of love and understanding for that client, so that whatever decision they make is the right decision. I mean, barring they're not doing anything inhumane or whatnot, but right. That there's only so much we can do. Yeah. And I feel like maybe that's something that I've matured as now. Last year was my 25th vet school graduation, which we sadly didn't get to have because of COVID. But I feel like I've matured as a practitioner in that regard, where I'm just laying this out for you. And I've also become probably a little bit more comfortable giving people candid advice. A lot of times people say, what would you do if it was your pet? And for years, I was hesitant to answer that because it's not my pet and it's yours and so forth. But I've also seen some people where they may have had analysis paralysis and they don't really know what to do. So I've been a little bit more willing to give them candid advice about what I might do or how I might think about it. And I think because you can answer that question without telling them what to do. But, one of the rhetorical questions I'll ask people, especially when it comes around the discussion of euthanasia, is, are you prolonging life or are you prolonging death? And when the answer to that question changes, that's the time to make the different decision. I can't answer that for you. You have to answer that for yourself. And everybody has a different criteria. But I found that can be a rhetorical question to help people through that very difficult decision.
It's so interesting. You said that we're coming to the end of the half hour, which of course I'm definitely going to have to be back because I love talking about that pragmatic way of handling pet records, but also that conversation with pets. I'm all about the conversation. So you'll definitely have to come back because we both have gotten older. We both have gotten more comfortable in our own skin to be able to have those conversations in a more compassionate way. Sometimes we're afraid. And now I guess age has wizened us, we hope. But Mark, thank you so much. The three things I'm taking away, of course, is that pets are so important, that human-animal bond. Being able to get your records from VitusVet so that you can have them with you is a transparency that vets should really want to pursue. And maybe if clients ask for it, vets will understand that they should get it because this is something that is absolutely true. And then that final question, which is, what is it that we're doing here? And is it in benefit of the pet? So that's the biggest question that we always ask our veterinarians, and the transparency with which they answer that is key. I mean, I loved what you said. And I always say, when my pets are ill, am I keeping them alive for me or am I keeping them alive for them? And if I'm keeping them alive for me, I go, I love you enough not to have, because I know that there are things that I, have experienced, as you probably have with pets that you've had in your life, that were just awful and you just didn't want to make that decision. However, my mantra is, it's not about me. It really isn't about me. It's about them. And I have to keep that in mind. Mark Olcott, thank you so much. We can find VitusVet at VitusVet.com, VITUS.com. VitusVet, right?
VITUSVET.com. Yep, that's us. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
The Why Do Pets Matter podcast drops every Thursday and can be found on whichever platform you find your podcasts. Subscribe now, invite your friends, and I cannot wait to have you join me in these conversations.